What is up, awesome people? I am excited today. We have a very special interview with an awesome man that has been in the industry for a long time, and he has a pretty cool beard. So I'd like you guys to, I want to introduce you guys to Mr. Will McGinniss. Hey,
Yeah,
how's
yeah.
it going? Glad to
I'm
have you
here.
on.
I'm here, live and digital.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Well, thank you for coming on once again, and we're just gonna ask you some questions and just inspire some musicians in just your journey and where you've been
Oh
and where
man,
you're at now.
I hope
So it's
so. I
good.
hope so. That sounds awesome.
Oh yeah. All right. First up, so for the people that don't know you, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and this where you come from
Yeah,
and things like that.
man. I'm an Ohio boy. Grew up in the cornfields of Ohio. A pretty rural, small town. Um, Went to Bible college in Kentucky. Got hooked up with some guys the very first week in college. And there's a funny story about that, but maybe we'll share that in a little bit. But um, yeah, I had, my mom and two sisters, so three of us kids and my mom, broken home. So, the early days were kind of tough. Didn't have a great relationship with my father until later in my college days. Tried to connect there, but it didn't really work. And then, my mom was just this struggling single mom trying to take care of three kids. Had a lot of connection with my grandma and grandpa though, and I'd say my grandma was who gave me my first love of music, but she bounced around on the piano and made it really special and really animated and really fun, and it got me passionate about music. She also took me to church and got me in the church. But after college, or while we were in college, we formed a band, uh, and we played all over the place wherever we could for the years of college, and then we got signed to a record deal. And Audio Adrenaline, moved to Nashville, and we've been in Nashville ever since. Moved here in 1990, made our first record, our self-titled Audio Adrenaline, and then man traveled all the way through until 2007. So we had a good long career, a lot of records made and sold, singles, number one singles, and a couple Grammys along the way, and Dove Awards, things like that. But one of the coolest things we got to do was we started a children's village in the country of Haiti. Um, and so we were able to use our platform for the Hands and Feet project. That was after one of our songs that we recorded called Hands and Feet. So that's probably a quick synopsis of my journey, just growing up in Ohio, going to school in Kentucky, and then living in Nashville for the last, uh, you know, quite a few years. So about 30, 35, 34, 35 years, I've been in Nashville and did the music business for probably, you know, 2/3 of those. So that's probably a good summary.
No, that's awesome. So with that, with your grandmother just playing, did she play for the church?
Yeah, she played for the church, my grandma on piano, and a little Methodist church in our hometown. But she just loved all the Lawrence Welk, all the old greats. She'd bounce around and sing them so loud, and I was just a little tyke sitting next to her, and she would let me hack next to her, and she didn't even care that I was messing her all up. She just kept going and singing, and where I didn't have a great home life at home, she just made me feel special, made me feel seen. She got me out in the garden, and my grandpa got me in the fields. I cut my teeth on a tractor and a grain truck, and I learned how to work hard. I learned my work ethic from them. I learned how to be good and go to church, be ethical and be honest and care about things, and put my all in everything. And so a lot of my life came from them, and I have to mention my aunt and uncle and my cousin too. My cousin Thad was who got me in church, and that's when I accepted Jesus, my 10th grade year. So from there, my whole family would turn around Jesus would make all the difference. My mom would get saved, my 2 sisters would get saved, and everything would kinda turn around from there.
That, that's cool to hear. Just kind of just with your family and how it shaped to be the man that you are today. All
Absolutely,
from the
absolutely. God
beginning.
God uses every part of it, man. He redeems it, or he makes it right, or he uses it, or he does all the things. Yep.
Oh, that's so good. So from being inspired with your grandmother with music, how did that transition into you playing bass for Audio Adrenaline?
Yeah. I mean, super funny. My grandma bought me a bass for my graduation present, and to this day, I still don't know how she knew that I even wanted a bass. And so, I come to my graduation, celebration, and she hands me a bass, and I'm just like, "Wow, that's awesome." So that was in May of '86, and, I played all summer. I just jammed out to all of my favorite bands that I was listening to back then. I learned all the bass lines by ear. I didn't know how to read music, of course, back then. And then, 3 months later, my mom takes me to college, and it's orientation weekend, and I'm over in the dorm setting up my room. I'm putting all my posters up, my album jackets, I covered every square inch of my room with my records and my cool posters, and I even put this huge tarp on the floor that just was all paint stained and everything, just covered my whole room and made it look so vibey and cool. And I'm over there doing that, and she overhears Mark Stewart and David Stewart and Barry Blair, talking about talking about a Christian rock band that they're gonna start, and so she walks up to complete strangers and says, "Well, my son plays bass. You should have him in your band." And I don't know that this happened. And she goes home like a week later. These 3 knock on my door, and I'm like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And they're like, I thought they were the welcoming committee, I thought they were just going around meeting everyone in college. It's Christian school, so kind of like camp. Everyone's there having a lot of fun. Orientation weekend. They knocked on my door and say, "Well, we ran into your mom." And we told her we're starting a Christian rock band, and she said, "Well, we need to look you up because you play bass." And I was like, "Wow, that's crazy." And they looked around my room and they saw how cool it looked, and I guess I seemed kinda cool. And I said, "Well, did she tell you I'd only been playing bass 3 months?" And they were like, "Oh, no, she didn't, but you seem cool. Bass is easy. We'll teach you how to play bass. You're in the band." And so that literally was how I got in. Our first band was called, A180, Make a U-Turn for God. You're going the wrong way, you need to get your life right and go back toward God, or repentance, that kind of thing. So Make a 180 was our first band, and then we signed and went to Nashville, and we were Audio Adrenaline. But we played all through college, and it was Mark and Barry and myself, and, we added, Bob Herdman to the lineup when we moved to Nashville, and so that was the band that moved to Nashville and took off.
No, that is just such an awesome story, and like you can see God's hand all over it just from
I
your
know you can't write that stuff. It's just stuff that happened, from my grandma giving me my bass to just my mom running into some guys talking about a Christian rock band, and then it actually worked out. I mean, we actually formed the band and put our 10,000 hours in playing all that we could in college, and then, we were jumping around playing air guitar in our college dorm room, listening to some loud music, and one of the guys said, "This is just pumping me up. It's so awesome, and this is like Audio Adrenaline." And then another guy goes, "Wow, that would make a great band name." And then we start getting calls from Nashville that heard some of our music from label mates of ours called DC Talk. I guess they took one of our early demos back to the label and said, "These guys are really cool." And so you just can't make this stuff up. It's just so random and so bizarre, and, doesn't happen every day. So that's just kinda I feel really I don't know. God's so unique and he's so creative. He just cares about his children so much, and he creates these crazy plans to capture them and to connect them and to use them, you know? So I'm sure you got your stories too, and all of our listeners probably when you say yes to God and you kind of have a childlike faith and just let him do his thing, he does these crazy things.
Hmm. No, that's awesome. I get excited for that kind of stuff just to have people say, "No, this really happens." Like,
Yeah,
it's you're not making it up. So
that's right.
that's so cool. What what would you say is the best part of playing bass for Audio Adrenaline?
I think early on, the bass and the drums were very integral. We were very drum and bass, kinda groove oriented, and so the bass was really important back then, and all of my influences, um, that were kind of EMF, Jesus Jones, Depeche Mode, U2, New Order, The Smiths, all that early alternative music I kinda was really into back in my high school days influenced me to be kinda groovy, dancey. So if you go back to the early bass grooves, they're probably we worked on songs from a drum and bass perspective, and then Mark and Bob would write lyrics over that groove, and we would add guitar, Barry's kinda guitar. He brought a real kind of schooled, guitar approach to everything. He was very talented, very technical. He could play very fast riffs, or he could do really cool riffs. And, if you think of, like, a big house riff, like, he just was really, really, amazing at bringing his influences to the table too, and that's why I think we were just a melting pot. Mark loved, like, all of the Journey and, the big, vocal bands back in the day, and so all of our influences just kinda collided into this thing that became Audio Adrenaline. It took us an album or 2 to kinda really find our sound, but I think by Bloom, our 3rd record is when we really hit our stride and when we really were, um, kinda who Audio Adrenaline was, and all of all of our influences, all of our the way we played and approached our instrument kinda came together and, really into what we would say is probably one of our best records ever, and it obviously it sold the most, and it was one of the ones that really was the groundbreaking kinda record for us. So but bass early on, as I said, was more drum and bass, more dancey, more groovy, and then we had elements of groove throughout our career, but I think, we became more song, um, kinda derivative, and the song would be presented first, and then everyone would kinda create their parts around the song, and that's, I think, so important when you think of your part in a band. It's not trying to stand out, it's not trying to see how many moves I can get in, how many notes necessarily. Sometimes there's moments for that and it's called for, but most of the time it's about what can I bring to the song that makes it, like, just the most powerful that it can be and the most impactful and the best song. And that's how each of us really matured and grew in our craft enough to know to ask that question, "What's this song need?" And, how do we make this song, the best, of the sum of our parts coming together to make a unique whole? So everyone not trying to be really selfish or stand out or really promote ourselves, but really coming together to make one great song, you know? And that's how we approached every record. So from then on, probably from Bloom on, it's a really cool way to approach, albums and themes and songs and just putting together what God was kind of inspiring us with at the time.
Once again, God had his hand on the very beginning and putting each piece of the puzzle together. And then through that, you guys were able to not only discover who you were individually, but as a band. And it's crazy just to think like, not just to be selfish or anything like that, but maybe if you're stuck on a song, if you're stuck with this, maybe to go to someone that's close to you and like collaborate and
Yeah.
see what It seems like you guys together brought something out of you from each other,
Oh,
and
that's
so
right. Yeah, for sure.
for talking about being in audio adrenaline, what was your favorite, most memorable experience on
Oh,
stage,
man.
off stage,
Wow.
whatever that was like?
Oh, man, there's a lot of cool moments, in a career that's long, and probably different eras have different moments, and different tours have different highlights, and I mean, one that stands out for me is meeting Billy Graham, Reverend Billy Graham. I was holding my son's satchel. He was probably, I don't know, maybe 18 months old, and, I got to meet Doctor Reverend Billy Graham, and he's one of my heroes. He's one of the great memories of my grandpa and my grandma and I is sitting around watching
Mhm.
Billy Graham do his crusades, and we loved it. We didn't miss it.
But
And to get to do a show where he was he was doing events where he was inviting youth out, and he brought young bands in to kinda connect, and then he would deliver his message to the youth. And, what an honor to meet him, to get to play shows connected to his brand and his name and his his crusades, and then he signed a Bible for my grandma, um, and then my son just was able to be there, and he kinda patted him on the head, and, it was just really neat. So, that was probably one that stands out. Obviously, going to the Grammys was probably pretty big, but that's more worldly, and
yeah.
those things are cool, but they're not, that's not really. It's neat to be, recognized by your peers, and that would be the Dove Awards, and then also to be recognized in just any kind of place in music. But, so some of those were kinda neat, but really, when we did shows, I mean, each one just would be so different and take on a unique and its own thing, and depending on the crowd and, how energetic they were, how passionate they were, how ready they were to kinda come and, go before the Lord and worship and jump around and have a lot of fun and be encouraged, so many great nights and great shows, and just, so many great people all over the world. They inspired our music. They are what led us to write songs and keep us going, we were inspired by people all over the world that just were living out their faith,
Mhm.
living out the gospel and loving on people, and they encouraged us to keep going and to keep riding, when the road got long and hard or tough, leaving your family at home, all those things.
Mhm.
So, but, the Billy Graham moment was cool. We were on 2 of the biggest DC Talk tours, that went out, and those were massive tours, lots of great things happening on those tours. Um, and then we headlined at some of the biggest festivals. I remember the Creation Festival in Pennsylvania, and
Hmm.
also out in California. We would
Mhm.
headline these massive festivals, 80,000 people, and we would have pyro going off and have all the production elements and just try to make it so big and over the top to show that Christian music wasn't second rate. It wasn't
Mhm.
second rate to anything. It was just as good, just as powerful, just as big, just as loud,
Oh,
just
yeah.
as crazy, and just as impactful, and the songwriting was just as good. So we wanted to compete with all the counterparts in the secular world, and so we just created all those really cool moments, and so a lot of those kinda stand out in my mind, but it's hard to pick, just one.
No, that's totally understandable, and it seems like there was so many of them that this sounded so great. Uh, I mean, definitely the Billy Graham was cool. Were you starstruck with it? Did
Yeah,
you
absolutely. Yeah, Billy Graham was just such a man of God, such a man of faith. I don't know if starstruck is really the word, but just a reverence and,
Mhm.
just a humility that he carried himself. Um, he was just the dude.
So let's go on the other end of that spectrum. Did you
Yeah.
have being a musician either by yourself or with Audio Adrenaline, was there anything like struggles that came along with that? Um, and how did you overcome those?
I think a lot of it is just, leaving your family is probably number one. My wife had 3 kids in diapers, some of the years
Oh,
when I was out on the road, and she was also a working mom at times, and man, so there's a lot in that right there. I mean, you ask yourself looking back at it, did I stay in the band too long? Should I have, like, just got out and helped her and did something else? And then that leads you to, well, I came from a broken home and all these other things, and I maybe I wasn't courageous and maybe I wasn't confident enough in myself outside of playing bass, so there's just all those things, that you deal with, from your upbringing, from the way God designed you, and, messing up, and getting it right. You have good days and bad days, and so the road was sometimes touring got really long, really hard, you got really weary, really tired night after night, different city, missing your family, um, and all those things, trying to stay, in God, connected to God and connected to His Word, and each of us, strengthening each other and holding each other up, and, but there were failure and all that, and there's times when it wasn't easy. So,
hmm,
but I think somehow in some way, it went the way it went, and I guess we would say that that's what God, had planned. And, it's easy to Sunday quarterback your life and look back and try to see where you might have made changes or whatever, but all you can do at this point is just learn from it and be better and grow and make better decisions and love well, love deeper, and, ask for forgiveness and forgive and do all those things. So, when the band kinda shut down in 2007, it was because Mark, our lead singer, lost his voice. So
mm,
that was a massive, obstacle and hurdle. We were at the top of our career. It wasn't like we faded out. It wasn't like we were we were falling off or, getting too old and couldn't do it. It was he lost his voice, and so we had to all of us collectively just said, "Well, maybe it's time to just kinda shut it down and regroup and look at other
mm,
things the Lord might be asking of us." And so those were difficult times, um, when all you knew was touring in the band and all the things, and then you just had to recreate yourself or find what was next. So those are all seasons that God, it was a time of breaking down and building back up, and reconnecting and growing and learning and seeing, errors in your faith or in your life or in your character, whatever, and trying to do better. So that's probably some of the highlights. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things in that
mm.
question, but I hope that kind of answered it.
Oh no, yeah, for sure. That's good stuff. Um, what would some on that note, what would be some of the advice that you would want to give like aspiring musicians that are either thinking about getting into it or are in it, and
Yeah.
um, yeah,
I
what would
mean,
you say?
you gotta be called to it, to be a itinerant, minister, as you will, if you can look at it that way, or a traveling musician, um, someone out there for God, someone out there who's really got the intentions of using his skill set, his craft, his thing that God made him, to be. I mean, when you do that, you gotta just take it serious. You gotta make sure you're strong. You got people backing you. Um, you got pastors and other people, your loved ones, that really are in agreement with you that that's what you're supposed to do, and get moments of rest, get moments of sabbatical, get moments of refreshing, and have your Sunday rhythm, where you're you're with the Lord once a week. He created the rhythms for a reason, the day of rest, and then going to your prayer closet and finding time with Him, communing with Him, in relationship with Him. Um, he just knew what we would need. He knew how we're wired. He made us in His image, and He knew how the world and the trappings of the world would be so hard, without all those people in our lives and Him and the connections and the accountability and all the things, So he, um, whoever's considering it, it's one thing to be great at something and to be talented, um, and to write or to play in a band or to, lead people in worship, whatever they do. But um, you just got to be doing it for the right reasons. We tried to always point people toward Jesus. We tried to always deflect praise and adoration toward us to Him.
Hmm.
And, the success that we had, we tried to always turn it around and give it back to God, and keep the keep the flow of the praise and the worship and the adoration heading in the right direction. And we never wanted our platform to be like we're up here and you're down there. We're better than you. We're these great people, and you guys are, you need so much from us. We've got all the answers. We're everything. We just tried to be real. We're like, you guys are the same as us. We just happen to be in a band, and that's our vehicle to promote God. You guys might be a lawyer, a teacher, or whatever. Wherever God's placed you, we all got our part to play, and we all got our mission field. We all got our place where we got to show up, and we got to show the fruits of the spirit, and we gotta be passionate about our faith and passionate about people, care about their story, care about what they're going through, and, so we tried to be that kind of band, and I think we did it a lot of times, but sometimes when you're fatigued, when you're weary and all those things, your guard is down and you're just not great. You're not doing it great, so you gotta ward against those things and, you know, do your career or your musical path in a way that's healthy, I guess, is the best way to say it.
That that is awesome. Thank you for that. So with that, you guys were saying that audio adrenaline, you really were going after God and just seeing whatever God wanted to do through you guys, which is just incredible to hear all of that. Which kind of leads you guys into the next season after audio adrenaline, which started happening in audio adrenaline,
Yep.
what you're doing today. So would you like to explain just what your project is that you do, your ministry you do nowadays?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for asking that. It's a passion of ours right now. I mean, it started all the way back in 2003 or 4. The band had a song called Hands and Feet, and we wanted to do something with our platform. I shared a little earlier about that. We feel like that's one of the greatest things we ever did was to start a children's village down in the country of Haiti. Um, there was an orphan and an abandonment crisis at that time. We went down there, and there were people who would pay for our platform, pay for our voice, but we wanted to do something sacrificial and something that was uniquely us. And so Hands and Feet Project was born in 2004. 20 years this year we've been going. Um, Mark's been involved, myself and my wife, and of course Mark's mom and dad, Drex and Joe, were the early missionaries that were down there. The band was going out and talking about it every night, and they were the ones on the field growing the work. Um, but we've cared for a lot of kids down through time. 129 kids have come through our campus, and we currently have 74 still on our campus today. Um, but what we realized is that the orphan and abandoned crisis was really a crisis of families who couldn't really care for all of their children. The poverty related, poverty plus, families that lived in a tough place like Haiti that didn't have opportunity to support their family, and so they would give them up to places like Hands and Feet as a better option. And so we got really ticked off at that, and we got in the fight to support families early on. And so we have 260 families right now outside our walls that we care for. come alongside. And that's, I think my wife just let me know yesterday, it's like there's 400 and, 30 kids attached to those families that are also in those
Wow.
churches that we're directly keeping intact, keeping that family intact. And we all know that God's nuclear family is the best design for any child to grow up in.
Mhm.
Hands and Feet Project is great, and our campuses are great, but one of 74 is definitely not as cool as being one of three or four or five in a family unit. And
Yeah.
and so we uh, we celebrate the fact that God has allowed us to be faithful even during hard times in Haiti. He's given us strength to endure. He's given us passion to keep going, and he's given us a heart that cares for these families and these kids. And we have daycares now that 120 kids in daycare that's allowing a family to drop off their child at a Montessori and heavily infused curriculum with the gospel and with Jesus and singing and worship, and they get a meal and all that stuff. So between the children's village and supporting families and these daycares, God's just doing incredible things. And so
That's
Hands and Feet Project is still alive today. We're still we're still out there going at it and caring for these wonderful people in Haiti. And so handsandfeetproject.org if you want to go and check out what we're doing. But that's the that's the work that we continue to do today, and it started with audio adrenaline. And that's how God is. He, going all the way back to my family and growing up in a trailer home, and him connecting me to my grandma and my grandpa and inspiring me in music, and my aunt and uncle and my cousin really, cemented me in my faith, and then Bible college, and then a career in music. I mean, God has got you. He's got your path. He's got all the things, and he's working them all together for the good of you. And so Hands and Feet is just another season of that. Him doing amazing things and using uh, his children who just crawl up in his lap and say, "Yes, God, today I say yes, and use me and do whatever you want to do today." So that's probably it.
no, that's amazing, and we obviously seen it through Karis at the church, and just how much work you guys have done, and just I'm sure there's insane stories that we can even go into with Hands and Feet and just
Sure.
how to get to there, but definitely check it out.
Handsandfeetproject.org. Yep.
Yeah, go there, check it out, support where you can, guys. Well, Will, thank you so much for this interview. I really appreciate just your time and being able to tell your story, and
I
just
love it.
appreciate it. Well,
Thank you
we'll
for
end
having
there.
me.
Absolutely, thank you.